Welcome to The Long Haul, the podcast dedicated to empowering small carriers and owner-operators to drive their business forward. I'm your host, Adam Wingfield, bringing you insights from industry leaders, real-world success stories, and strategies to help you navigate the road to profitability. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your fleet to the next level, this is the show where trucking meets opportunity. So buckle up, it's time to go the distance. Welcome back, everybody, on another exciting episode of The Long Haul. As you know, our goal and our objective in these conversations is to make sure that we bring impactful and real-time actionable information that can help you run your business better and help improve the success rates out there. Before you get started in this particular podcast, before I say anything else, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to go like, subscribe, and share this podcast out to as many people as you can think of that will help them become successful as well. I'm super excited in today's episode or about today's episode because we're going to really start talking about something that really, really matters. Well, everything we talk about matters, but this one matters a lot more. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because I have the pleasure of speaking with the Chief Product Officer at TTN Fleet Solutions. He brings a wealth of experience to the table. He's a third-generation business owner with deep roots in the transportation industry. His journey began at his family business, Jim's Towing Service, where he started in the shop and eventually became vice president, overseeing its three divisions: towing recovery, transportation, and fleet maintenance. Since joining TTN Solutions in 2019, he's been instrumental in leading sales, marketing, and product development efforts, focused on innovative solutions that enhance fleet maintenance and roadside assistance services. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with the one, the only, Tyler Harden. Welcome for joining. Thanks for joining us on our show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Man. Well, it's exciting. No, I tell you what, the reason why I say this conversation is exciting because this is the one conversation nobody wants to have, because this conversation usually means it's bad news when we're talking about maintenance and breakdown. But I think it's really, really important. But before we get started in today's conversation, you grew up in a family-owned towing business, right? Towing and fleet maintenance business. Talk us through that journey a little bit. Walk us through where where that passion came from to really kind of take this and continuously go on with it.
Yeah, certainly. Well, for those of you that have been involved with small family business or a small business at all, small businesses are difficult to manage at times, but fun and rewarding. You throw a family mixture component into that and things get exciting. But I'm grateful to have a great family. My grandfather and my grandmother started it off and did a fantastic job. Reputation's everything, and it's really just about integrity, doing what you do, saying what you say, and doing both and saying both. And so, those are things that are, rooted in what I try to do each day. Nobody's perfect, but, you try to go out there and get it. And so, through family business, you learn how to manage relationships and really how to serve the people that need help. And that's the one thing that is gratifying on my end is getting to help people.
Tell me a little bit about Jim's Towing Service. Tell us a little for the listeners that don't know. And I can tell you, when I flew in yesterday, I was on the way to the hotel, and I just glanced over the right hand side, and I saw this facility with trucks, and I saw a bunch of tow trucks on the side that said Jim's Towing Service. So tell us a little bit about that for those that don't know, because obviously we have a lot of people that may not have heard of it.
Yeah, sure. So Jim's Towing Service started in 1968. My grandfather was a Firestone tire man. Started driving the tow truck on the weekends and decided to buy a tow truck one day. And that's how Jim's Towing got started. And predominantly it was light duty, working for the motoring public. They were a AAA affiliate, which most of you are familiar with AAA. Hopefully you haven't had to use it too often, but it's out there to help you. But through those years, he grew the company rapidly, and my father came into the business, and in 1997, I believe, and got into heavy duty, which is really where it kind of expanded, and we took on more of a commercial approach with commercial customers, and expanding our footprint through Central and Southern California, and even growing into other states. We've brought it back a little bit now to a localized environment, but added another service line of truck repair and roadside maintenance. Kind of goes hand in hand. We saw a lot of customer need for it. and decided to throw that in there.
So we're going to hit upon that later. We're going to talk a little bit about, rotator trucks, things of that nature, and the hidden cost behind that. Because we're going to talk a little bit about towing. We're going to talk a little bit about how the perception is, and I'd like to get some thoughts and perspective on that. So let's transition a little bit, right? So from a hands-on role, you was active in a family business from a leadership perspective. Where did TTN come into play? What made your decision say, "Hey, you know what? I want to spread my wings a little bit further, and I see this company called TTN," and what played into that decision?
Well, I was fortunate. My dad, as an entrepreneur, was involved with TTN early on, as TTN was created, and as we were growing our family business, we interact with it obviously as a service provider. And I always saw the opportunity of expanding and looking at expansion and trying to help more people. My thought is to bring process and service and solution to as many people as I can. That's really what I wanted to do. And I felt that TTN was a way to do that. And also to connect with other service providers as we built out the network in order to go service those large fleets.
So what makes TTN so different? I want to kind of talk a little bit about that. They provide services just like, typical emergency roadside assistance, towing, accident management. So specifically, what is that differentiated offering that makes TTN just kind of stand out amongst the crowded field?
So one differential would be our easy to use technology. It's something that's rooted in our in our roots. When we started, we were web based 13 and a half years ago. Actually allowed us, as a good story around COVID, right? When everything shut down, a lot of offices had to be closed, right? We were web based, so we ran the entire time. We never missed a beat, able to support our customers the whole way through. And so our differential really is, when I try to create products, I try to create products for the user, and that user experience is really important. And if you ever been broke down on the side of the road, I mean, that that's never really a good thing, but I always try to like to make it better and improve it little by little. But I believe that our user experience is second to none in the industry, and we really care about the driver specifically. The fleets are great, and we get a lot of data back to those fleets, but the driver and taking care of that driver roadside's our most important feature about what we do.
The funny thing is, and it's not funny, but I always tell people there's nothing guaranteed in trucking except for the fact that at some point in your career, your truck is going to be broke down on the side of the road, needing a tow or needing some sort of roadside assistance, because that's just the nature of the beast. Now, TTN has this, is it called the big rig savings? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with a company called Crown Source. It's a big rig savings app. That's a way that you can go purchase maintenance through them. We've really founded ourselves on building programs, and so we build quite a few programs. We're actually under the cover of a lot of programs that are out there.
Mhm.
We are a service provider to a lot of those, to administer a lot of those roadside assistance programs that are out there. One thing that we do have coming out, our software is called Fleet Assist. It'll be hitting the market very soon, and I'm excited about it. We have it testing with some larger fleets, but I really want to try to bring some solutions to the driver specifically, and I think we'll be able to do that.
All right. So now let's talk about some of those needs for that fleet assist, or the need for having that.
Yeah.
When I think about common challenges for owner operators regarding, vehicle maintenance, when I look at vehicle maintenance, and I'm going to tell you that the thing is that you're being in this industry as long as I've been, there's two types of maintenance. There's breakdown maintenance and there's preventative maintenance. And that is one of the biggest challenges to really kind of articulate. It's unusual to have to say that, but it's one of those biggest challenges to articulate when it comes down to proper maintenance, proper proactive maintenance, that in order to make sure that you're operating at full potential. What are some of those challenges that owner operators face regarding vehicle maintenance specifically? And then how does TTN Fleet Solutions address those issues?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is probably in life. It's a life lesson here.
Yeah.
Consistency, being consistent. You consistently have to maintain your fleet. You can't wait. You can't defer. We talk about deferred maintenance. That's kind of a no term in my mind. I
Yeah.
understand sometimes it has to happen because you just don't have the funds or you can't get to it right now, but it will end up metastasizing itself and being a problem later on. A lot more expensive too. So I think consistency is probably the biggest thing that you can install as a fleet operator, and making sure that you're consistently maintaining your truck, looking at your truck. There's these things, Adam, called pre and post trip inspections. That's your best solution to try and identify what's going on with your fleet. Um, as far as TTN and how that can help, I mean, TTN is a super simple resource in calling to action a service provider, no matter where you are, what you're doing, whether it's scheduled or unplanned scheduled, one of the two. Either way, it's there as a resource for you running your fleet.
So walk me back a little bit. I want to talk about maintenance. I want to really spend some time around that maintenance subject. And a lot of times when owner ops, small fleet owners, you hear the word maintenance, the end all be all is just get a PM done and have a mechanic look it over. Walk us through what that look it over should actually look like. In your opinion, what does that should look like? What should an actual when you're talking about maintenance, and again, I really want to spend some time on what that really should look like. What should it how should it start? What type of intervals should be in place? Just go into some detail around that.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the pre and post trip inspections are so important. Nobody knows your truck better than the person driving it. And you got to listen to those to the drivers. If you're a fleet manager, you really gotta take into consideration what that driver's trying to explain. May not be able to articulate exactly what's going on or diagnose it for you, but you have to take that in consideration as you're looking at what's going on with the truck, or if there's any maintenance that needs to be done before there's a breakdown or a concern. So the driver inspections are critical. And then, in California, they do a 90-day the bid inspection program. I think that's a good stance. I think every 90 days, you take it to a shop, allow somebody to go through it and really do a thorough inspection. They're looking at the brakes. They're looking at any chafed airlines. They're looking at any loose cabling underneath. There's just lots of stuff that happens on the roadside, like you said before. It's not if, it's when, and you just need to be able to have another set of eyes on it. So inspections are very, very important. And then, the mileage interval on your engine, read the manufacturer's spec, hit those mileage intervals. They're there for a reason. I mean, I can't explain physics any more than just looking at it and saying, all right, if it's a 15,000 mile interval, that's what you do. If it's 20,000 or whatnot. You can stretch intervals a little bit depending on the type of oil you are going to be able to use, but you have to be really consistent with using that oil. The best performance that I have found is a full synthetic oil. I know it's a lot more expensive, but you can stretch that interval a little bit, and it pays off in the long run. There's a lot of small oiled pieces that are inside these engines nowadays that are important. And then probably the thing that probably gets overlooked the best is or the most is and has the best result is fuel quality. And looking at your fuel, you can test fuel. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. You go to a local shop, you can ask them about your fuel quality, but talk about fuel efficiency with your filters, and all of that. These engines are very, very smart. They'll be able to tell you your fuel rate and things that are there. And you'll probably notice a little sluggishness. I don't know about you, Adam, but if you've ever got a truck serviced and then you take it, you get it right out of the shop and it feels like it just runs a lot better.
Yeah,
Does that ever
yeah,
happen to you?
yeah. Oh,
Okay, so that's the same thing I'm talking about, right? It's not just you're feeling like it's running a lot better. It is running
really
a lot better
is.
because it just got maintained. So those are all, and that's fuel efficiency. That's going down the road and not having any issues. So there's just a lot of upside in order to, as you're maintaining your fleet, as you're maintaining your truck, but also too, things just break and you got to listen for those.
That's such a broad brush, and I want to dig into that too because when you say maintenance, it varies, right? But when you look at the one thing that you can appreciate And like when you go buy a truck and buy a used truck and you know that was quote unquote fleet maintained, you feel good about buying that truck because they follow a meticulous process for maintenance. They stay on top of their mileage based intervals. They're making sure that the equipment stays on top of that. They're on top of things such as what we would discuss. So I think it's really important as a small fleet owner to have those same processes and those same practical experiences. But you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to talk about because some of the things that you just brought up lead to bigger issues and things such as synthetic oil. The crazy thing that I found that with certain synthetic oils, they actually treat your DPF system a little better. So have you heard that? Have you heard where it creates a better environment for that system to operate better?
Well, so helping the engine run more efficiently is going to lead to a better fuel burn. So your DPF is really is diesel particulate filter is really foundational for cleaning the NOx out of the air. But if the engine is running, we'll call it dirty, or not as efficient, and not burning fuel is efficient, a lot more contaminant is going to hit that filter. So it won't have it's not going to be a direct impact on DPF performance, but if you burn fuel more efficiently, then you will have a longevity for your DPF. Absolutely.
What do you feel about idling? How does idling impact the long term effectiveness of that truck?
Yeah, these manufacturers didn't realize that these trucks idle quite a bit, and when they built these things, man, they really just didn't design them to sit there and idle.
Yeah.
Especially in where I've seen most the biggest problem is in the vocational style trucks sitting idling on a job site or something along those lines.
Dump truck, oil
It's
field.
Yeah, yes,
Mhm,
exactly. I mean, it's horrible on those systems because they can't run their duty cycle.
mhm.
Over the road, it's fantastic. So, you know, if you drive them more or high idle them more, it is better for that system in order to clean itself.
So when you think about around that whole maintenance piece, you talked about the pre-trip and post-trip inspections and the importance behind the post-trip inspections. One of the things that I can appreciate about technology, specifically in the ELD technology, is that if you leverage it the right way, it can be a kind of a full scope system that provides you with not only hours of service, but it also helps you maintain the vehicle with triggers and things of that nature, just like you talked about from a mileage-based perspective. But you also hit on the importance of the pre-trip and a post-trip inspection and how that stuff can help you stay ahead of some of these issues. If you could just kind of tie into some of the most important things that you see that are getting missed, that you could say, you know what, we've seen this time and time and time and time again. If it was caught doing a pre-trip inspection, we wouldn't be out here.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So in a pre-trip inspection, you're able to see everything visually, right? With a post-trip inspection, you have the added advantage of having driven that truck. And it's a whole nother ballgame because you can feel everything. Um, and let's just say, for example, you feel a little vibration. Is it in the steering wheel? Is it in the seat? Well, you don't really know. You drive it a little bit. Now all of a sudden, okay, yeah, it is in the seat. Okay. Well, if it's in the seat, that means I've got a drivetrain issue. I can slide underneath that truck on my post inspection. I can look and I go, oh, yep, something doesn't look right on the drive shaft, or I've got some oil that is coming that shouldn't be there. Right? Those are things that you can pick up in a post trip inspection that you probably would. I wouldn't say you miss them, but you probably would. They wouldn't be as significant to you in the pre trip. And so that's why I think the post trip is probably the most foundational and valuable inspection that a driver can do.
I want you to think about two different scenarios or two different environments. You got your mega carrier, 10,000 plus tractors, and then you got the smaller carrier, 5 minus tractors when it comes down to it. What are some of the things that you see that are done at the mega carrier level that you say, you know what, if this was all the way across the board, if I could show this to every single owner operator or every small fleet owner that's out there, These are some of the things that the mega carriers are doing to stay ahead of the game. And you hit on maintenance and you hit on pre-trip inspections, but a little bit deeper into that, what are some of those things that give me some of that secret sauce that the smaller folks can say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start doing that because Tyler said this would probably be the right thing to do and it helped me out.
Yeah. Let's see here. That's a good question, Adam. I would say this. There are a lot of great operators when it comes to large fleets. Um, they're really managing the numbers. That's what they're doing. They're playing the numbers game. Okay, and so that's what works well for them. And they have access to a lot of data, and they can tell what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Um, uh, Now they can't predict breakdowns. We're not to that point yet. But what they can do is they can see where things commonly fail,
Mhm.
and they can buy different stuff. So they're buying trucks or they're buying fleet equipment that that they know about, and it has a good track record with whatever vocation that they're in, and that's how they buy it. They may extend their intervals so that they have less times that the truck is in the shop for maintenance. um, that's just what works for them. They have a maintenance plan that works for them. What I would say to an owner operator or small fleet operator is, you have an advantage over the mega fleets and the fact that you can get very granular with your maintenance, and it's not going to cost you a whole lot of money. Is it going to cost you more? Might cost you a little bit more in the beginning, but in the long run, it's going to save you a lot. And so, what I would say is, you can get very granular with your maintenance program because it's on a smaller scale. And I would say that you would definitely want to do that. You want to be on the road the whole time, being available to run freight whenever you need to and want to, and get those loads that are the highest paying, right? And so, the mega fleets, they have a little bit of a disadvantage in that sense, because, like I said, they're managing the numbers.
So Tyler, one of the things that I find interesting, and which is really interesting in terms of the small carrier space, is that a mega fleet will exit a tractor in the life cycle, right? So I want to talk a little bit about the end of life cycle of a tractor and a fleet. End of life cycle in a mega fleet is what 300, 400,000 miles might be approaching that end of life cycle. But that end of life cycle for a mega carrier is the beginning life cycle for a small fleet or an owner operator. When you look at that, what are some of those things that would kind of say, "Oh man, be careful about this"? If you're an owner operator, you're a small fleet, and you're purchasing, and I mean, I guess I'm just going to be real. You're purchasing an end of life cycle item from a mega carrier. What are some of the things that you need to be mindful of that as you purchase that to use that to scale your fleet? Or I want to walk into that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, there's so many lanes to look at when we talk about motor and engine transmission packages, and you look at the vocation you're using. Um, when you say the fleet says end of life, they're really just saying, "Hey, we're not willing to risk that one anymore. We have the ability to buy new and bring new in." It's not a bad truck. It's not a bad truck. It's probably a really great truck. Um, One thing that I think I could give as piece of advice would be, if you're buying that truck, typically they keep pretty good maintenance records. I would ask for if you could get access to the maintenance record. You could see
Yep.
that. If you could see what was done to it, maybe it just had a brand new DPF put on it. Maybe it just had a new cam put in there, whatever it might be. And it's not bad to have those large maintenance repairs. It's actually a good thing because, um, you know, that's something you don't have to do. If you get a 400,000 mile truck that has had very little large things happen to it, uh, it's coming. So maybe not, I might steer away from that one. So maybe that's the advice I'd extend, is get one that's been worked on a little bit, that has some of the things done to it you don't have to do.
One of the things on top of that, not only do I recommend highly, and even in Playbook, we talk about, when you're looking to purchase a new truck, here's some of the things that you need to do. One of the common things that we have our students really look at is making sure that they also request a J Pro. because we feel like that J Pro is almost like you go into the doctor's office before you even see the doctor. You got the vital stats of that particular patient. You know some things just right off the bat that they need to be focused on. So it's important that, like you said, it's important to see the diagnostics, important to have as much data in front of you to make the decision the right way. So when I look at that and I look at the importance of being able to dissect those things, and you talked about something that I think that listeners on here also need to make sure that they consider is that, hey, you know what? You want to purchase a truck that has had some work done because that's going to lower obviously, it's going to lower the intervals for you to have to work on those items come up. But then also from that standpoint as well, you know that it's being well properly maintained and it's going through those cycles. Once you acquire a piece of equipment, from your recommendation, we say follow the manufacturer's guidelines, and we also say it depends on the application and where we're using. The folks listen to this call a primary OTR, over the road, kind of line haul folks. What would you recommend is, hey, you know what? If I'm buying a truck that's 400,000 to 700, 800,000 miles, I want to at least have a PM done at X thousand miles. What would that look like from your perspective? Just looking at it from, hey, I've seen them all. I've seen them in the large fleets. You've probably seen every application that's known to man. But what would be that interval? What do you think would be that sweet spot?
Yeah. So as a high mileage engine starts going, you need to shorten the intervals a little bit, right? If you can afford it, I would say the 10 to 12,000 mile range. If it's 500,000 miles or more, I would definitely make sure that you're maintaining that truck a little bit more, a little closer. So, maybe that's a quarterly service, maybe that's every 3 months if you're really running. Maybe it's sooner than that. But it's definitely worth it, because you really don't want any major engine failure. The other thing I would say is if you're buying a high mileage truck from possibly a mega fleet or maybe just a used truck that you find, alignment is huge. And it may be just like, oh, well, the truck drives fine. Freightliner, when they bring trucks off the lot, they don't align them properly for the road crown of our roads in the U.S. I can get real technical, but should be a negative camber on the curbside, a positive camber on the driver's side,
Because of
and
that
that
crest.
creates that engine torque,
Yeah.
right? And then that's going to straighten those tires up. I personally did alignments. I'm a big fan of Beeline alignment rack. I have a Beeline alignment rack. Cut my teeth on that. And when I was doing camber caster adjustments, which you can do on a straight axle, for you gearheads out there, we can actually adjust the camber and caster both of an I-beam axle, front axle. You will get a massive amount of longevity of your tires. Fuel efficiency is going to be that much better. And more importantly, the comfortability of driving that truck and feeling secure on the road in adverse winter road conditions is so much better than that steering wheel shaking in your hand, or, you're not sure about the front end, or there's popping or something going on. The alignment is important. Tires are important. Tires are expensive. And I think that's a cheap, very valuable option to go take care of.
One of the things that kills the uptime for a small operator, whether it be an owner operator or small carrier, which obviously we know it impacts the mega fleets as well, but they have the capacity to be able to withstand that. But there's 3 letters that scare the absolute bejesus out of people, because your truck engine will run forever, right? It just will. You take good care of it. And I've seen a Series 60 last for God off 40, 45 years. But when you talk about the letter DPF, it really, really resonates with some significant failures with people in the industry, significant heartaches, significant repair bills. When you think about a one box, you replace a one box, you're talking 12, 14 grand at some case. What can somebody do to proactively, really realistically maintain a DPF system versus waiting until that D-rate light starts coming on? What are some of the steps and some of the things that they have to do Let's see what the users can really have something actionable from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, you first kind of have to understand the systems a little bit, right? So diesel particulate filters filtering your exhaust gas. Uh, in turbo diesel engines, you've got air, you've got fuel, and those mixture is all that should be running through there, right? It should be cleanly burned exhaust gas that runs through there. If injectors are leaking, if there's some coolant running through the system, right? It's a turboed engine, any contaminant, oil, like you said before, any contaminant that is running through the intake portion of that engine and it's converting that into gas and it's got contaminant in there, it is going to affect that filter. That filter's super hot, and if you put coolant in there or oil in there, it's going to affect it, and it's going to affect it big time. And there's really not much you can do. Its cleaning process is meant to clean the soot. It's meant to clean the NOx, the gas related cleaning, not contaminant, not oil or coolant or raw unburned fuel. And so if your truck has a miss or if your truck is not running the way it should, feels sluggish, you got to look at it because in our mind it's like, oh, it's not something's not right, it'll be okay, but it's driving fine. That could, like you said, a one box $12,000-$15,000 later, you're wondering why it happened. That's just replacing that one box. That's not fixing whatever was wrong before. Maybe it's a turbo seal, or like I said, a leaking injector or something along those lines.
So the crazy thing is that a lot of these issues are contributing factors to the overall deprecation of that DPF system, and it may not have anything to do with the DPF system alone. It's a filter, so it's going to be the one that catches all the garbage. And when you look at that, that makes it very, very difficult to do anything proactive outside of thermal and non-thermal cleanings.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, these they were designed to clean the exhaust gas, not really to run very good. And it's just part of the game. I think you need to have a plan. You need to be aware of your truck. You need to be watching it and try to catch things early on so that they don't metastasize to something larger.
What are some of those recommended when you look at it? If you were to put again, we're going to take some of those mega fleet learnings and we're going to apply them over here at the small side. When we talk about intervals and we talk about repair intervals and just maybe maintenance intervals, what would be those intervals that we can put around that DPF system to say, hey, listen, guys, we know that there's things that we can't control that is going to end up in this DPF system and it's going to make it break. But here's something that you need to do at this interval. Like, for example, maybe it's the dosha valve and making sure the seventh injector is replaced every 150, 175,000, whatever that may look like. What would you say that should be some of those things that they need to look at for a DPF to make sure that we can lower the risk?
Yeah, visual inspection. Visual inspection is something that's cheap, and most of the time you can get to that filter and you can visually inspect what's going on there, especially if you pull a clamp off and you've got, if you see anything that's not clean and dry, you got something going on. So a visual inspection, and you can do that in any interval that you please. But if you did that once or twice a year, I think that it would definitely be able to save you again in the long run if something's going on. Like you talked about the dosing valves and all that kind of stuff. Some of those are specific to that type of system, but what is not specific to a system is fuel, oil, and any contaminant running through there. So that's definitely something that I would look at. Just that visual inspection, pop those clamps off, take a look at before and after, and see what you got going on.
You talked about soot levels. Is there an acceptable soot level percentage, maybe like 8, 9%, where you can say, hey, you know what, you probably can get away with this? Is it higher? Is it lower?
I always err on the side of caution with soot meters because they're not meant to measure your performance. They're just kind of there as a tattletale. So, I always err on the side of caution with that one. Especially if a yellow light's popping and you got to do a regen, you got something that's not always bad, but you probably have something going on that you need to take a look at. It just, again, it depends on that vocation. If you're OTR, like most of the listeners today, you really shouldn't have to be doing that many forced regens or manual regens. And from a soot level perspective, again, I would err on the side of caution with that one.
How do you feel about tools, though, diagnostic tools that are able to clear out, whether it be a truck in rate going to D rate, provides it with the ability for the user to go in and do a force regen on? Because some trucks now, I mean, you can't even do a force regen on them.
Right.
But what do you think about those tools? Is it something that it obviously there's some effectiveness to where you're not broken down on the side of the road, but is there any long term issues when it comes down to that if you're not careful?
No, I mean, again, if there's contaminant in there, some that could harm your filter, the ceramic and the ceramics and the materials in the filter, that if there's contaminant. But running a forced regen shouldn't really have any challenges with that. It's meant to run hot. It's meant to burn that stuff off. If you're having to do it, frequently, you definitely have something going on. You definitely have either the filter's worn out itself, or you got some contaminant in there.
Now, just when it comes down to regens, there's several different regens that you obviously got park regen, and then you got the rolling regen itself. Is there any circumstance where one is not a good idea to do a parked versus rolling regen, or if I shut the truck off about in the middle of a regen? Is there any you hear some of those myths there? Yeah, you shouldn't shut the truck off down in the middle of regen.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if it's if it's in an active regen, I would let it run its course. Let it roll through it. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, but let that engine do what it's designed to do. And I think you'd have much better performance for sure. Rolling regen, it's meant to do that going down the road. So just, take it nice, consistent pace. Let it do its thing. And then the parked regen, the only thing I'll say on parked regens, because I've seen them before, I've been in the towing business and recovery business long enough. Stay away from dry grass.
Yeah, high grass. Yep. Set that thing on fire.
Things that, yeah. Try not to do a parked regen while you're in dry grass. That would not be a good idea.
Yeah, no kidding on that. The thing that it's not even funny to say it, but a DPF system realistically reminds you of a science experiment. It really does, because if you knew exactly the whole big picture of a DPF system. I remember when I was a kid, when I first got started in trucking, trucks used to go up and down the highway like choo-choo trains, man. You see black smoke pouring off in the air. You don't see that much. And you don't see the impact that, obviously that the DPF system has done to really lower those emissions and really make the environment, the air quality, a little better. I want to move a little bit over to something that maybe people are, there's very passionate, obviously opinions about it when it comes down to towing. And you hear the horror stories of people that are been held hostage, predatory towing and things like that. You come from the towing and repair business. And I guess I'll start off with the heavy duty side, right? You get those stories and those instances. I don't want to just call them stories because these are happening to real people. Well, they'll go and it'll be a rollover, and that rollover might cost $20,000 for them to, to right side the truck up, or they may go and, a truck was parked at a truck stop and it got a boot put on it, and now the towing company is charging $5,000 to $10,000 to take that boot off. Being that you see both sides from that perspective, maybe talk a little bit about the operational costs that are associated with, bringing out a rotator wrecker out to the scene to put a right side of truck, or hey, getting somebody in the middle of the night, having to go, obviously enforce a boot. So just kind of walk through that. Let's have a little bit of discussion around towing?
Sure. Sure. Well, as you know, yes, there's lots of non-consensual towing issues that happen, and I'm not about to defend any of the bad actors that are out there. The industry of towing and heavy duty towing has some great people, fantastic leaders, smart business people. It also has some people that are not honest and that take advantage of situations, and it's really terrible to see. So I won't justify that, but I will justify some cost as you requested. These rotator trucks that are these tow trucks. Yes, they're fancy and they have a lot of stuff on them, but you could even if you didn't get all the stuff on them, they're still $800,000-900,000 units. Um, they really grew in popularity to continue with road efficiency, make sure we can get trucks and trailers off the road without impacting other traffic as much. And so that's the reason why the rotator is used, and it wasn't used before. Before you'd have 2 or 3 trucks out there sideways in the lane, you'd have an entire freeway shut down. It was impeding traffic. These are a little bit more efficient, a lot safer for the operator, safer for the motoring public, and that's the reason why that they exist as it sits today. The operators now, just like in trucking and transportation, there's always a shortage of people that actually want to work with their hands. And during COVID, when we were all frontline, that's just our nature. That's what we do, as an industry. And so you specialize that, and you go into some of these operators that have had years and years of experience. They're paid well. They make a great living, but it's expensive to get good people. So their wages, there's a few of them I know about that are making $50, $60 an hour to go out there and run a rotator. Different states have different regulations as far as hours and service. We aren't really regulated. Like I'll say California, for example, we aren't really regulated by the DOT. So the hours of service don't necessarily apply to us because we're running in less than 100-mile radius. Now, a lot of companies can kind of get the DOT hours and wages in there. In the state of California, you kind of, I would say, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You got to follow the state of California guidelines. So like if you get somebody called out in the middle of the night, it's a 4-hour minimum to pay that individual to be called out. Plus now you're on overtime because they probably worked their 40, right? And so you can see really quickly where, you've got potentially hundreds of dollars an hour just in payroll out there. So a lot of these towers, when they have that much cost wrapped up into something they may not get paid for, they tend to, hey, I've got to control my risk a little bit. I've got to increase this, a little so that I can get some that'll pay me, and some I'll have to keep their truck and I'll have to dispose of it, that kind of thing. And so I've done it all, seen it all. One thing I've always done is be honest and have that integrity of, hey, here's how long we were out there. Here's all the documentation. This is all the people that did the work. And that would be my advice to anybody listening, is that if you ever get in that situation, document everything. Documentation is king when it comes to these types of incidents. And you probably teach them, Adam, that, you've got to document all of your safety records and have all that there and just observe. Hopefully you're not incapacitated. Hopefully you're safe and you didn't get injured. And if you have the ability, make sure you just start documenting everything. It is kind of CYA. And then, as far as the industry itself with towing, it's starting to change. There's actually some PE money that's coming into it. It's starting to get a little bit more pronounced as far as business goes. And so I think you'll see some really good things coming out of the towing industry. I know there's some bad actors, like I said earlier, but I'm really proud of what we do, how we do it. And the bad stories always hit the top of the
Yeah.
news ring, right?
Yeah.
All the good ones, the thousands, literally thousands of tows a day that happen without a hitch and get you from point A to point B, rescue you off that side of the road. Those are really kind of unsung, and I'm like I said, I'm proud of our industry in that respect.
What can an owner operator do if they feel that they've been, and you talked about documentation, and that's really important to ensure that you do that. But what about those instances? I pull into a truck stop. I don't see the sign. It's hidden. It says no, obviously it says no parking, or, you must get permit, or must pay to park, or whatever that be. I go inside, grab me some gummy bears, come outside. There's a boot on my truck, and then the owner of the towing companies want to charge me $5,000, $6,000 to take the boot off. I mean, what do we do? What do we do in that standpoint?
That's yeah, it's a difficult situation. It just really is. There's not a lot of law around it, right? You think you're like, man, this is robbery. Like this is fraudulent. And then you look and they go, well, you didn't see the sign, or yeah, well, you didn't, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Um, you know, I would say this: attempt to educate yourself as much as you can on the states that you're traveling in and their laws around that. If you know that it's hard to find parking in a state, make sure that you have a place to park. Try to plan that in your routes. Try to make sure that you're in a safe location where that's not going to happen. If that does happen, there are some challenges around it. You're able to call the local law enforcement and ask them, "Hey, can you help me out with this? I may be in the wrong. Or I may not be, but here's what's going on with this situation." And hopefully they can tell you something. But that would be my advice in that scenario. That's a tough one though.
Do you see that as common, across the industry? Is it being taken advantage?
Um, I would say that, like you say, you hear those stories, but I think commonly, you know, uh, I would like to think that there's not that much of that happening. I think that where you park your truck overnight is important, right? Number
Yeah.
one, from a security standpoint, to keep yourself safe and your cargo. So I think that's a big thing to look at for sure. Is a parking partner. There's a lot of them out there. In Adam, you probably got resources to parking partners, but man, and they're expanding. I've got a couple properties that I might throw in the parking thing, but yeah, park. Make sure you're parking in a safe location. The ones I hear the most about are these exorbitant bills where you know the truck is listing, or it's not even, or the wheels are on the ground and literally just got moved onto the
Yeah.
roadway, and it's $80,000. Those are the ones where, like I said, document, you know, take pictures, take names and phone numbers down. I mean, everything, because that's one where you're gonna have to get a little bit more involved. You're gonna get with your insurance company, get them more involved. That's another option too. Is we don't like to call the insurance guys ever, right? Because if you call the
Yeah.
insurance man,
Mhm.
all of a sudden your premium is going to go up, and it's
Yeah.
already too expensive, right? But you have insurance for a reason. And when you're in a situation like that, you got to get them involved. You have to get them involved as early as possible. The earlier you do that, the better the situation will be from a cost perspective, and even just from a headache perspective as well.
Oh, no, I definitely can appreciate that, because obviously it happens, and you know it. You're gonna see the bad, just like you talked about, man. This right now, there's probably thousands and thousands of tows that have taken place across the U.S. just in this short conversation that you and I've been on, that went without a hitch. But then there's going to be the ones that blow up on TikTok that gets 3, 4, 5 million views, where it was the instance of somebody getting advantage taken of them. So that's why I don't like to paint a component of an industry in a bad light without having a full perspective of it, because they're obviously, bad news travels a lot faster around the world than good news does at all. So I appreciate you just definitely kind of highlighting that as a whole. So when you think about this too, and looking ahead, And I want to talk a little bit now just about this kind of forward thinking because you hinted at it. You're like, hey, we got there's some things, some P's that are taking place, some things going on. That's going to be a good thing that's going to happen. So, what emerging trends do you see in fleet maintenance and roadside assistance specifically that owner operators and small fleets should be prepared for or should take advantage of?
Sure. Yeah. So I think there's going to be some consolidation, some more consolidation. There's a lot of things that are happening. What I mean by that is there is private equity that's coming in and buying a lot of service companies and consolidating them into either one brand or one consistent business process. And they're taking regional approaches all over the country at this. So what that makes it nice because you have a lot of resources in a larger area. Um, Plus the fact I think that you're going to see some technology, like you talked about earlier about the ELDs and those systems that are out there, telematic systems. They'll have maintenance component to them. They kind of have like the tracking maintenance thing where you can kind of track it a little bit. I
Yeah.
think what you'll see moving forward is that there'll be some services that are you could purchase services through those platforms. And that would be something I would definitely take advantage of if I was an owner operator or a small fleet large fleet operator too, is that a way to order service when I need it and when I know I need it, which is through my operating system.
So, how is TTN Fleet Solutions specifically planning to adapt its services to meet those needs of what you just specifically spoke about? Is there going to be, I guess I don't want to kind of put the cat out of the bag because I know you guys are working on something right now, so I don't want to have to do that. But that's not my intention to do that. But is there anything specifically that TTN is doing to say, hey, small carrier, owner operator, we're getting ahead of this here. We're your partners in this. What are some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be releasing some stuff, but the idea will be exactly what I talked about, which is um, allowing a driver to purchase service when they need it, and being able to have all of those resources together into a technology package, either integrated with your operating system or just standalone. Fleet Assist, we have built a business process to manage a breakdown or a maintenance event front to back, pay out the service provider, take care of all the tracking that you might need, understand each one of the service breakdowns where a breakdown costs so you can see that. For number of large fleets, we VMRS code stuff so they can track their maintenance, see where they're spending, and different hierarchies of different subsections of the fleet. So there's a lot of things that we've done in our business process. But foundationally, we've built a quote and a purchase mechanism in which there's a lot of transparency. And so throughout the maintenance event or the tow or any service that's out there that we have on our platform, it's transparent so that you can see what the costs are and what you're about to get into. And so that's something that we're going to be pushing out. It does that today for our major motor carriers that we work with now and our other programs. But I believe we'll take it to market as a kind of a in-hand driver app as well.
Man, that sounds awesome. Now, as we wrap up, and on this call, obviously you have the entrepreneurial spirit of folks that are just burning in the desire to succeed, and you've been around some very successful entrepreneurial journeys, being a part of a couple of entrepreneurial journeys as well as yourself. So, reflecting on your career and reflecting on some of those things as you saw, the family business being around for 65 years plus. What advice would you give to owner operators aiming to optimize their maintenance practices and reduce operational costs, just from a entrepreneurial perspective, just based on what you have seen I mean, you've been in this all your life. So if there was like three things that you could just say, hey, do this, do that, and do this, and things would be a whole lot better for you, what would those three things be?
Oh, you teed me up perfect on this. So a couple of things. So if we're talking specifically maintenance and running your truck, right? It's that consistency and the mechanics. So mechanics and consistency, which means get discipline in the way that you operate your business. In other words, build systems,
Mm,
build intervals, write them down. Sounds crazy? Write them down. I don't care if it's a notebook or, maybe you've got something fancy that you're going to give them out. I don't know, but write those processes down so that they become foundational in what you do, and be consistent at them. So that would be the two. And the probably the most foundational one, and this is something that I tell my kids. It's something that my family has done for me, and that is your mental well-being and your physical well-being. If you aren't mentally well and physically well, nothing can work right.
Uh-huh.
Nothing can work right. So, when we have issues in a business, they will happen. There is going to be a snake in the corner somewhere, I promise you. If you meet that snake with this feeling of overwhelmingness or unsurety or oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do, that snake's going to win. If you meet that snake with, I got this, this is normal. I've got a plan. Here it is. I just run my plan. I knew something like this was going to happen. No big deal. We're off and running. I'm going to go sell. I'm going to go to the next thing. If you meet it with that mental clarity, you can't be stopped.
Man, I love that. And I love you closing out with that motivational message there. This time went by extremely fast. I appreciate you spending time with us and really dropping some incredible information as far as actionable things that you as a small fleet owner operator can take upon. Listen, this particular episode, we really dug into maintenance, but we also talked a little bit about that roadside stuff that you need to make sure that you're prepared to embark on your journey as you go forward. Tyler with TTN, man, it's been a pleasure having that conversation with you. Listen, for those that are on this podcast, make sure that you're sharing this out, you're liking, you're subscribing. And at the same time, if you're not a member of the Playbook, make sure that you become a member of the Playbook so that way we can deliver this to you in a regular format and ensure that we're getting you the information that you need, that we can point you to success. We appreciate you listening and tapping in. And Tyler, thanks again for joining us today.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, folks. Until the next time, we'll see you on the long haul.